Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
There's a lot going on in our world lately, and a lot of people are saying things are feeling kind of heavy, kind of challenging in life. A lot of things going on. How do you stay positive? Genuinely positive. Not the rose-colored glasses where you're kind of making it up, but it's real. How do you stay in that state? We're going to talk about that today. And she offers so much insight as a psychotherapist that works with anybody having any challenges. She meets you where you are, even if you're in a negative spot, kind of looking at it through a different lens. She is Susie Engel. She's back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. How are you?
Good. There's a lot going on. There really is. And, some of the world events, some of it's trickling down to the cost of things and just in general. So it's real. We got stuff going on.
Yeah.
What would you say is the easiest way to maintain, as best you can, a positive outlook about everything?
Right. So I think it's tricky, right? Because if somebody is suffering from really, really pervasive symptoms of depression, it's a different type of conversation. But if we're just talking about everyday coping with this general stressors and staying in a window of tolerance, which means coping with day-to-day stressors, then I think it's a very interesting conversation for us to have, because if you just listen in general to people in your life and hear this negativity, like for me, I have a sensitivity. I'm almost allergic to it. I feel like I don't have a lot of allergies in my life, but I feel like I'm allergic to negativity, and I was just thinking of an example. I was working with somebody and they were talking about how the family had to dig out one of their cars. You know how everybody's cars were iced in here in the Northeast? I mean, maybe the whole East Coast, by the way, maybe down to Washington and all over Maryland. But they had to dig out the car, and there were a lot of complaints and a lot of negativity about it. And I just feel like, wow, that's sad to be so negative about something that just simply needs to be done. And I'm thinking, man, I would make a game out of it. I would, do it in intervals, like 20-minute intervals. So I'm getting this exercise and drink a lot of water. And I would just flip it into some sort of goal to set or some sort of silver lining. But to be immersed in one person negative, then the other person feeds into it, and then it's like a contagion.
I'm seeing what you're saying, because I approached this storm. We both live in the Northeast. I approached it with a different mindset, and my mindset was, okay, we had a lot of snow, like
Yes.
2.5 feet.
I mean, it was a lot, and I understand that the cars got embedded in it if you weren't using one of the cars and were economical about it.
But the reframe that I looked at, and I don't like snow. It's work.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I deal with this. But I looked at it as okay, this is a reason to hunker down and chill, a little bit, because, tap the brakes from the busy life. And as soon as the snow stopped, I was like, all right, let me go out there and free my older Jeep. And that was parked on the street where, it was plowed in. And like, let me see what we can do with this. And this is what I thought. Just what you said. It's exercise. I'm getting fresh air, grounding. And it's a challenge because I moved a couple of years ago in between houses. I don't have a snow shovel. I have a dirt shovel. I just assumed the complex is going to take care of everything. But, of course, they were inundated. So I used that dirt shovel and dug out my Jeep with a goal of seeing a friend who has some challenges. and I wanted to go there and just make sure they were okay. They weren't
Right.
answering their phone because they were outside, with the snowblower and everything. So I was like, you know what? That's my goal. I'm going to get it on the road. I wonder what the road's
Yeah.
going to be like. It's going to be interesting. I have 4-wheel drive. Let's give it a. So I made it a fun, if you want to call it that, experience as opposed to being miserable and, oh, God, yeah, what am I going to do here? Um, and I
Because
enjoyed it.
yes, and I like the way you set a goal to see your friend, and you didn't have a snow shovel because you had just moved, but you problem solved. And I wonder if that ground shovel was actually more advantageous for you. But
Hmm.
aside from that, it's also about making a decision. I think it's very important that everybody in the audience, you and I, as we talk about this, realize we are our own agency. When we have a sense of agency, we can make decisions for ourselves that are good for us. And one decision that we can sometimes make is, what attitude do I want to bring to this? And we've
Hmm.
talked about procrastination, we've talked about a lot of big topics, but making a decision not to look through not to convince ourselves, but seriously to say it's healthy to have some sort of positive outlook. And that provides a lot of endorphins produced and good feelings about things and a good energy toward whatever we have to tackle. And it's just, for me, it's just such an important conversation because negativity is heavy.
Hmm.
Negativity weighs a lot. Negativity makes a simple, what I might consider to be simple, but some people may not, but makes a general task that needs to be done exponentially more difficult.
Yeah.
And that's just the spirit of it.
I wrote this down and I'm going to read it. And this is a little while ago. I heard this. Pain is mandatory. Misery is optional. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I like it. So pain is a human experience. Pain, whether it's physical pain, whether it's physical pain because of trauma, whether it's social emotional pain because of trauma or because of difficulties in life, pain is a human experience. And I respect that. Pain, hurt, deep, deep sorrow, all those feelings. But how we cope and how we accept that pain is a turning point. Because if I
Mm,
can be accepting without judging myself, without assigning a value, I'm in pain, it must be negative, it must be bad. That's assigning values that we've learned along the way. And if I can just say, you know what, this is a painful experience, I hurt, and not but, and this is how I'm going to handle myself. I'm going to feel my pain. I'm going to appreciate the information I gain from these emotions, and I'm going to function.
mm, mm.
And that's not making a mindless choice to get stuck in misery. I like that saying that you wrote down.
Misery
I
is
do.
optional. So what it
Yeah.
looks like for me is that what we're saying here is that the you have a choice. So pain's going to show up, whether it's physical, emotional. It's a part of life. Some say that that makes you stronger. That moves your life forward. Embrace the discomfort. It is. It's going to be there, but you have a choice of how you're going to react to whatever is presented to you, and that's where I get the it's optional. The misery thing. You can wallow in that.
Misery.
Yeah, and yeah, call it suffering. I think it's a thing where people are addicted to
Yeah.
suffering. They can just get
Yeah,
used to it.
I do too. I think that, but the thing is, I mean, it's a little bit, I don't know what you just said about pain. pain makes you stronger. I mean, that takes a lot of work to push through what you have to push through and acknowledge that you've up leveled or that you are more whole because of it. But pain
Mm.
hurts. I mean, I don't want to dismiss that. Pain hurts. Difficult tasks are difficult. But the issue is what if we can acknowledge that and be accepting of that, it makes our choice of attitude toward whatever we have to do a whole lot healthier. And
Mm.
this is positivity. I mean, there's a real power to positivity, and negativity is just so contagious. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I just had a quick thought. How do you know? Let's say you practice positivity. You kind of look at things in a positive way, the proverbial glass is half full as opposed to half empty. You're being intentional about it. And it's working. You see that you're feeling better, but and I'm not trying to throw, a wrench in the works here. How do you know that you're not just becoming numb to what's around and
Yeah.
that you're truly looking at things through a positive light? I know it's a tough question.
No, it's a good question. I like this question because, I mean, really, it would be up to each individual, right? We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to constantly be assessing ourselves. But the question that you're asking boils down to, can I ask myself and assess myself, am I authentic? Am I who I am in my own skin anywhere I am in my life? And I
Mm.
think that that's the difference. I don't have to force myself to be positive, and I wouldn't want anybody to force themselves. That is never going to work. But if we can achieve healthy self-worth and achieve a nature about us that
Mm.
brings an attitude of, I've used the word already. I mean, I guess it's like a whole nother podcast we could do about acceptance and and shedding this habit of assigning values like this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. That's bringing us a little closer to a more adaptive, positive attitude about things. And I think it just starts way deep inside of us once we get the key. Everything is within us. We're born with a positive outlook. We're born with DNA. There's studies about this that is we are born with a blueprint to flourish. I mean, this is interdisciplinary research. And then life starts happening, and maybe we have genetic predispositions that get triggered and unleashed.
And I believe that too. I say it all the time as life goes on. Baby's born. It's perfect.
Yes,
Assuming it's healthy, it's
yes, yes,
perfect.
yes.
It's the clean slate, if you will. And then life happens, and then baby internalizes things. Now it's a 2-year old. Now it's a 3. Now it's a 5-year old, and it's looking at life and forming judgments, opinions. Most of it is on the survival level, and that now that's programmed, and now you're an adult, and now you're still operating on that program, the subconscious. But I agree with you. We and there's fear. When you talk about fear, you want
Yeah,
to stay
we
safe in
always
fear.
talk.
I've
Always
I've
comes back.
and I've heard this when it comes to fear. There's only two that we're born with: fear of falling and fear of loud noises. The rest of it we learned. The rest of it we learned. And those are just to
Well,
keep us safe.
that's interesting. I don't know where you learned that. That
I
that
heard
there
it,
are
and
two
then
types of fears that we're born with. We are born with some circuits for certain emotions, and one of them is fear. This is the thing. If we achieve a positive outlook that comes from our core, or if we maintain that even through ups and downs in our lives, look at what it gives us. It gives us confidence. It gives us curiosity. It gives us motivation. It gives us that energy, positive energy, which is priceless. So that in contrast to negativity that dampens or puts a damper on motivation and puts a damper on curiosity. Maybe we're planning a trip to go to a country we've never been. Fear or negativity will limit that experience. But a positive attitude, it's limitless. And motivation, how do we not? We need motivation and we need that positive energy. So it's just,
Do you find,
it's just,
Susie, if we're more who we really are, so, as close as possible to that baby that was just born, that is perfect.
authentic.
Oh, thank you for the word. That was going there. If you found that sweet spot where you are, or as close to you as possible, do you find that you just invariably can be more positive because you're not putting up a front, you're not
Yes.
coming up with excuses, you're being you?
Love this connection for sure. For sure. Do you know how much extra work it is to wonder, how do I please everybody else and put
Yeah.
on this mask for this situation or that mask for that situation? Or which is disconnecting, by the way, which should be another podcast of ours. Is it's alienating if we are not authentic. And I love that you're making that connection, because when we are authentic, our lives are so much more at ease. And the stress response is reduced, right? Stress response comes down because we're just being ourselves. We're not putting all this extra
Right.
consideration.
Putting on a show. You're not
Right.
doing it. So I think in lyrics, this one dropped out of the sky into my head.
Oh, yeah, good.
Says it all right here. And I always thought this when I was younger. I always thought songs like this, that's for old people. I'm not listening to that. It was part of the Rat Pack. This is Sammy Davis Jr. I think Tony Bennett did it. Was never into this kind of music. Just going to be honest with you. But this song popped in my head.
I was.
I
What
got
song?
I got to be me. Whether
Yes.
I'm right or whether I'm wrong, whether I find a place in this world or never belong, I got to be me. I got to be me. What else can I be but what I am? I want to live, not merely survive. And it just goes on, and even right down to, I'll go it alone. That's how it must be. If I can't be right for someone else, if I'm not right for me.
Me.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
You
I also
never thought of that with that song. Wow.
Oh, now, wow, that's really great that just popped up for you.
Weird.
That's great.
Because I'm
the
saying, I got to be
universe.
me.
Positive. It's positive energy. That's why you made that connection to those lyrics. Yeah, that's positive energy right there. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, I don't know about you, but I go for a morning walk every day before work, and then I do other things, of course. But sometimes I'll find myself humming certain songs. And when I listen to the lyrics, I was like, wow, this is like my mantra for the day.
Yes. Can I share another one real quick? And because
Of
we're out of time
course.
here, but this kind of says what we're talking about. And this is a song that I just heard at the gym, and I got the lyric wrong. But now when I hear the right lyric, it makes even more sense. Horse with No Name, America, early 70s. We all know that song.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name because there ain't no one for to give you no fame. That's what I thought the lyrics were. I was wrong. It really is, in the desert, you can remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no pain. So I'm thinking there's no one in the desert to say your name and make you feel a little bit of fame, so you can't remember your name. But no, the lyrics are you can remember your name because there's no one there to cloud it up and give you pain. And then I went deeper and looked, the guy from America, what was the deal with this song? He visualized, like we think the desert's like, barren, it's horrible.
It's rich.
That's it. It was his place of peace because he wrote it in the UK. He was at, the whole band's from America, but their dads were in the military in the UK. When he came to the States, he went to a desert and somewhere out west and found it to be peaceful. And that's why he talks about that. I saw it the other way, like, deplorable conditions on the desert with this horse. It doesn't have any. It's like amazing when you look at it, but there's what it's saying. Like there's nobody around to give you pain. You know who you are now.
And also, this is really nice because it brings us back to earlier of the beginning of this conversation about experiencing pain without judgment and making a decision not to keep ourselves stuck in misery.
It's a choice.
We may have pain and we may not have pain, but whether we do or we don't, we still have to cope. And our emotions give us good information. Yeah.
And we never minimize anything for anybody, but when you think about it, you have a choice in everything. And if you want to wallow in your pain, that's your choice. Call it misery.
I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, because my problem is if somebody is so deep in unawareness, they're not making full mindful decisions and choices.
Agree.
So, yes. But once we realize what we were unaware of and we're aware, then we are all responsible for ourselves.
Yes. Like if you've gone down a rabbit hole in a situation, you can't see all of it and you can't process it. So very much understandable to be in that mode. But honestly, that's where somebody reaches out to somebody like yourself.
Right.
To try and process.
Awareness.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Susan Engel, that's ENGEL, Susan Engel LCSW.com. Thank you for today. Like we come up with the one word, positive. And we're like, I don't know where that's going to go, but I think we kind of nailed it in a lot of areas here today.
Well, it brings up a lot of broader issues, and that's really great.
Yep. Thank you. Love what you do. Thanks. Love you. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.